What happens when the CEO grabs a mop just to blend in only to find a pregnant server struggling with 20-pound trays no one would help her lift? Graham Zeller hadn't visited Store 6 in over 3 years. He'd bought the buffet chain from a retiring family-run owner 7 years ago, and since then, it had grown to 10 locations across the state. Profits were steady, reviews were decent, but something about the latest customer feedback from Store 6 didn't sit right with him. The words cold staff, messy floors, and no leadership kept showing up in online reviews. He'd had enough of hearing it secondhand. "I'm going in," Graham said to his assistant, "as a trainee. No one from this location's ever met me in person anyway, they won't know." He was right. Store 6 was 3 hours south of corporate, and most of the original staff had turned over since the acquisition. He'd never done a walkthrough, never shook a hand there. He shaved the beard, dyed the salt and pepper strands in his hair dark brown, and put on thick framed glasses. A fake name tag Paul pinned to a blank brown polo completed the look. On a humid Thursday morning, Graham walked through the front doors of Store 6 with a nervous smile and a fake resume in his back pocket. "New guy?" the cashier asked without looking up. "Yeah, Paul." "First day," he said, voice even. She pointed toward the back. "Talk to Mitch." Mitch, the store manager, was in his late 30s with a buzz cut and a clipboard under one arm. He barely looked at Graham before handing him a mop. "You're late, Paul. Floors are nasty." "Clean 'em?" "I thought I'd be shadowing someone. Not today. We're short 3 people. You mop, you stay. You complain, you walk." Graham nodded and took the mop. He didn't mind, not really. He wanted the truth, so he'd get it. The dining area was a mess. Sticky soda spills, crumbs under tables, even a broken plate left near the salad bar. As he worked, Graham watched how the staff moved. The kitchen looked fast-paced but stressed. The servers looked tired, pushing carts and balancing trays while dodging customers. Then he saw her thin, clearly pregnant, ponytail damp with sweat, hoisting a tray stacked with food up to her shoulder. A customer flagged her down. She turned with a forced smile and winced, the tray tipping slightly in her grip. Graham stepped forward. "Hey, let me help." Before he could reach her, Mitch barked from across the room, "Sasha." "Hurry it up, table 4's been waiting," the woman Sasha, her name Tag Reed, gave a small nod and hurried on. Graham stood frozen, mop in hand. She was at least 7 months along. He caught her again 10 minutes later near the drink station, rubbing her lower back. "You okay?" he asked, keeping his voice low. She looked startled, then shrugged. "Honestly, no, but if I sit I get written up, so keeps me moving, I guess," he frowned. "They're making you lift trays like that?" "Yep, I asked for help last week. Mitch said if I couldn't do the job, I shouldn't have taken it." Before he could say more, Mitch walked by and clapped his hands. "Paul, stop chatting. Get the windows next." Graham nodded, jaw tight. That night after closing, he stayed late to help with clean-up. Some staff had already left. Sasha was wiping down booths slowly. "You really shouldn't be lifting that stuff," Graham said again. She sighed. "I know, I've been here 4 years. Thought I'd have a little more support by now." "Why not take leave?" "I can't afford to. And there's no maternity policy here, no paid time, just whatever PTO you've saved. Mine got used up when my son got sick last month." She paused, looked at him. "Why do you care anyway?" "Most new hires don't even talk to me." "Just seems wrong," he said. Graham didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, he arrived early. He wanted to see how the rest of the team worked. He noticed one dishwasher, Terrell, had been there since open, moving non-stop. A teenage buzzboy named Lewis kept picking up slack from the servers. And Sasha? She was back, still lifting. By mid-afternoon, Graham was watching Mitch again. He barked orders, scolded over the headset, and tossed a half-eaten sandwich at a trash can and missed. When a customer complained about cold chicken, Mitch rolled his eyes and muttered, "People are so soft these days." Later in the break room, Graham overheard Mitch telling another worker, "Don't baby Sasha. She wants to work, she works, pregnant or not. We ain't a babysitting service." That did it. Graham had heard enough. Tomorrow would be the reveal. And Mitch wouldn't see it coming. Graham arrived before sunrise, parked his rental across the street, and watched from a distance as the first employees trickled in. The lights inside flickered to life, and the familiar clatter of prep work began. He wasn't there to mop today. He walked in just before opening, wearing the same brown polo and name tag, but his focus had shifted. He'd seen enough to know this wasn't a case of laziness or poor training. It was systemic. Something was broken in the culture of Store 6, and Mitch was at the center of it. Inside, Terrell was already elbow-deep in dishwater, the sleeves of his shirt soaked halfway to the shoulder. He nodded silently at Graham, exhaustion lining his posture. Graham gave a quiet nod back and moved toward the kitchen. "Paul," a voice called over the clatter. It was Janine, a line cook with a sharp jawline and braided hair tucked under a net. She handed him a tray of tongs and gloves. "You're with me today, we're down someone." Graham didn't argue. He followed her to the prep station where a mountain of raw chicken waited. She handed him a pair of gloves. "You ever work a fryer?" she asked while slicing into a plastic bag of wings. "Not really. I've worked kitchens, though." "That'll do, just don't crowd the basket." "And if you drop anything, tell me. Mitch doesn't let us toss food unless he sees it himself. Even if it hits the floor," she lowered her voice. "Especially then." Graham's gut turned. Health code violation, among others. She didn't look up. They worked in rhythm for nearly an hour, moving quickly to keep the line stocked. Janine didn't speak more than she had to, but Graham noticed the way she watched the door every time Mitch passed by. "Is he always like that?" Graham asked under his breath. She hesitated. "Worse when corporate's not around." He didn't respond. She didn't elaborate. By mid-morning, the dining room had filled. Graham stepped away from the fryer to grab a crate from the walk-in. As he passed the side hallway, he caught Sasha leaning against the wall, one hand braced on her belly, the other holding a bucket of refills. "You need water," he offered. "I need a minute," she whispered, her face pale with strain. Before Graham could reply, Mitch appeared around the corner. "Break time's not now," he snapped. "You got 3 more tables that need clearing." "She's not on break, she can speak for herself," Mitch cut in. Sasha straightened, clearly biting her tongue. "I'm going," Mitch looked at Graham. "Stick to your lane, Paul." "You're not her supervisor." "No, I'm not," Graham said, voice calm, "but I am human. You might try it sometime." Mitch's jaw twitched. "One more word like that and you're out." Graham nodded and walked off without another word. Just before lunch rush, he caught sight of Lewis at the drink station, wiping down trays with one hand while balancing a stack of cups in the other. He looked barely 16. "You always work double shifts?" Graham asked. Lewis startled, dropping a cup. "Sorry, I didn't mean yeah sometimes." "Only when my cousin's sick." Graham bent down to help him pick up the pieces. "Who's your cousin?" "Janine. She's the one on fry with you." Graham paused. "She's family," Lewis nodded. "She got me the job, said it keeps me off the street after school." "You still in school?" "Yeah." "I come in after." Graham glanced at the clock. It was nearly 1. "When's your break?" Lewis shrugged. "Usually don't get one till dinner rush slows down." Graham's chest tightened. "You're supposed to get one after 5 hours." Lewis looked away. "Mitch says if I take one, someone else has to cover, and no one wants to, so I just skip it." Graham didn't say another word. He just stared at the drink station, jaw clenched. When the afternoon lull finally hit, Graham stepped into the manager's office unannounced. Mitch sat at the desk with his feet up, scrolling through his phone. "You're not supposed to be in here," Mitch said without looking up. Graham closed the door behind him. "Actually, I am." Mitch's eyes lifted. "What?" Graham reached up and pulled off the name tag. "My name's not Paul." Mitch's face twisted. "What are you talking about? I'm Graham Zeller. I own this company." Silence. The air in the room shifted like a dropped weight. Mitch stood slowly, confusion flashing into disbelief, then fear. "You're..." "Wait, this is some kind of joke, right?" Graham stepped forward. "No joke. I've been here 2 days. I've seen how you run this store, and I've seen enough." Mitch stammered. "Okay, wait, whatever you think you saw. I saw a pregnant woman lifting trays while you barked at her." I saw expired chicken being salvaged. I saw a teenager working 8 hours without a break, and I heard you tell people they don't deserve help. Mitch's face paled. You don't understand. We've been understaffed for months. I'm doing what I can. You're doing what suits you, Graham said. And you're done. As of this moment, you're terminated. I want you out of the building in 10 minutes. You can't. Yes, I can, and I just did. Mitch's face flushed red as he grabbed his jacket and stormed past Graham, muttering under his breath. Graham stood still for a moment, then took a breath and stepped out into the hallway. Janine saw him first. She froze mid-step, tongs still in hand. He raised a hand. Can I speak to everyone for a minute? She nodded, and within 5 minutes the entire staff had filtered into the dining room. Sasha leaned against a booth, Terrell wiped his hands on a towel, and Lewis hovered near the edge, unsure whether he belonged. Graham stepped up. I owe you all an apology, he began. My name is Graham Zeller. I own this company. I went undercover because I needed to see what was really happening here, and I did. No one spoke. I saw people working hard under impossible conditions. I saw people stepping up for each other, and I saw leadership failing you. He looked at Sasha. No one should be carrying trays 7 months pregnant. That ends today. She blinked, stunned. He turned to Janine. No one should feel like they have to hide health violations to keep food costs down. Starting now, you have full authority to discard anything you feel is unsafe, no questions asked. Janine's mouth parted slightly, caught between disbelief and relief. He looked toward Lewis. I've already called HR. We'll be auditing every miner's hours and ensuring breaks are enforced. Effective immediately. Lewis nodded, eyes wide. Graham stepped back. There will be a new manager here by tomorrow. In the meantime, I'll be here with you, not as your boss, just someone who's ready to listen. There was a long silence, then Sasha spoke. Why now? He didn't hesitate. Because I stopped trusting reports and started trusting my eyes. No one clapped, no one cheered, but Janine stepped forward and handed him a clean apron. If you're staying, she said, you're on Fryer today. Graham took the apron with a small nod. And for the first time in 3 years, Store 6 ran with a sense of something it hadn't had in a long time. Hope. Graham stood behind the line, apron dusted in flour as the dinner shift began to swell. The fryer hissed with fresh batches, and Janine nodded toward the timer without needing to speak. The rhythm of the kitchen was different now, still fast, still demanding, but the edge of tension had shifted. Not gone, but redirected. People moved with a little more purpose, a little less fear. He kept his head down and worked, not drawing attention. His presence as the owner had been revealed, but he didn't want a parade. He wanted to observe, not command, and there was still more to see. Near the back exit, Terrell stacked empty bins, his shoulders hunched, movements deliberate and slow. Graham stepped over. You still good back here? He asked, voice low. Terrell didn't look up. I'm fine. Need a break? I'll take one when we close. Graham didn't push. The man wasn't the type to open up easily. As he turned to head back toward the main line, he passed by the staff bulletin board. A few tattered flyers, a ripped schedule, and a faded poster about Employee of the Month that hadn't been updated in over a year. One name still hung below the yellowed heading. Sasha M. He stared at it for a moment, then stepped into the back office and opened the schedule binder. It was handwritten sloppy, with crossed-out names and last-minute changes scribbled in the margins. He flipped through the last several weeks. Sasha's name appeared 5 or 6 times each week, often double-booked. Lewis's shifts ran late into the night. Terrell's hours stacked with no full day off in over 2 weeks. He closed the binder, jaw tight. Out on the floor, Sasha was helping an elderly couple with a plate, one hand steadying the tray, the other reaching for a roll of napkins. She bent slightly, then caught herself with a sharp inhale. Graham stepped forward. You need to sit, he said. I've got 5 more tables. I'll cover them, she hesitated. I can't just hand them over, that's not how it works here. It is now. She looked at him, really looked, and then, without a word, walked toward the break room. Graham picked up the tray she left behind and delivered it himself. The guests thanked him, assuming he was just another server. As he returned to the kitchen, he caught something odd out of the corner of his eye. Louis at the dish station, arguing quietly with a man in a black hoodie. The man didn't work there. Graham stepped closer. "I'm not giving you more," Louis said, voice barely above a whisper. "I told you I don't have it," the man leaned in. "You got paid, you owe me." Graham stepped up beside them. "Is there a problem?" The man turned, eyes narrowing. "Who's this?" Louis answered first. "He's the owner," the man scoffed. "Didn't realize this place had one." Graham kept his tone even. "You need to leave right now." "I'm just talking to my cousin." Louis didn't correct him, but his face said enough. "I'm not going to ask again," Graham said. The man didn't move. Two cooks came around the corner, Janine and a tall man named Reggie, who'd been quiet most of the day but now stood with arms folded. The man in the hoodie spat on the ground and walked out without another word. Graham turned to Louis. "You okay?" The boy nodded, but his eyes were glassy. "Take a minute in the stock room, I'll cover here." Louis disappeared through the back door. Reggie grabbed a fresh towel. "That guy's been showing up a lot lately, always waiting by the back." "Why didn't anyone say anything?" No one thought it mattered. Graham looked at Janine. "If he comes back, call the police. I want a restraining order filed." Janine nodded. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Graham ran plates, helped clean, and kept an eye on the dining room. By the time they locked the doors for the night, most of the staff looked like they'd just finished a marathon. Janine slumped into a booth with a soda, Reggie counted drawers, and Sasha wiped down menus slowly. Graham gathered them near the register. "I'm staying in town for the rest of the week," he said. "Tomorrow, HR will be here. We're reviewing policies, updating schedules, and auditing pay history." He looked around the room. "There's a lot to fix." "I can't promise miracles, but I can promise you won't be ignored again." Janine set down her cup. "What about hiring? We're drowning." "I've already greenlit 2 new hires. Sasha, I want you off the floor. Front desk only if you're willing." She blinked. "Are you serious?" "I'm not putting you back out there. And after your maternity leave, if you want to come back, we'll talk about a supervisory role." She covered her mouth, nodded once, then turned away. "Reggie," Graham said, "I watched you keep the kitchen moving without saying a word. You've got a calm head. How would you feel about stepping into shift lead?" He looked stunned. "I mean, yeah, absolutely. Good, we'll make it official tomorrow." Janine stood. "You're not like other owners." "I pretended to be one of you," Graham said. "The least I can do is act like I learned something." Later that night, Graham sat alone in the office. The silence after hours felt heavier than usual. He opened his laptop and started drafting a new policy memo, the first of several. He titled it, "Reality from the Ground." And he wrote, "We don't fix companies from behind desks. We fix them by walking the floors, listening. Lifting what others are forced to carry. Real leadership doesn't shout, it shows up." He hit save. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. By Friday morning, the atmosphere inside Store 6 had shifted noticeably, but not dramatically. The staff still moved quickly, the buffet still needed refilling, and the register line still backed up by noon. But something had changed underneath it. A quiet sense that someone was finally watching who actually cared. Graham arrived just before the doors opened. He wasn't wearing the brown polo anymore. He'd hung it up for good the night before. Today, he wore a simple button-down and jeans, unmistakably not a crew member but not corporate slick either. People looked at him differently now, not with fear, not yet with trust, but with the start of something close to it. He found Janine at the back prep sink, sleeves rolled, her braid tucked under a fresh hairnet. "HR's setting up in the office," he said. "You'll meet them after the lunch rush if that works. Long as it's not during the fry window." "Reggie's still too green to run it solo. He'll get there." She wiped her hands and leaned on the counter. "You staying through the weekend?" "No, I've got to head back tonight, but I'll be checking in twice a week until we find the right permanent manager." Janine nodded once. "As long as it's not another Mitch." "It won't be." She reached past him for a clean cutting board. "Can I ask something?" "Sure." You really didn't know this stuff was happening here, he paused. Honestly, no, I read reports, I saw numbers, but I hadn't walked the floor in years. That's on me. She didn't say anything, just gave a small grunt and turned back to her work. By mid-morning, HR had quietly begun sitting with employees one by one, reviewing time cards, verifying pay, and taking private statements. Lewis went in first and came back out 20 minutes later, eyes a little wider but shoulders less hunched. Sasha followed, then Terrell. No one said much afterward, but the silence didn't feel tense, just thoughtful. At 11:30, Graham caught Sasha wiping down the sneeze guard by the salad bar. She'd been reassigned to the host stand for the day but kept drifting back into old habits. "You're not on this side anymore," he said gently. "I know. I just can't stand still." "You don't have to stand at all right now. Take a seat near the door. Greet guests as they come in. We'll add a stool back there this afternoon." She hesitated. "Is that really okay?" "It's better than okay." She gave a small nod and finally stepped away from the line, moving toward the entrance with a folded towel still in hand. At the back of the kitchen, Reggie was struggling to keep pace with a sudden flood of orders. Janine had stepped out for her HR meeting and the fryer timer was screaming. "Need a hand," Graham said, stepping beside him. Reggie blinked sweat off his brow. "I got it, but if you can grab more dredge from the walk-in." Graham was already moving. By the time Janine returned, the line was caught up and Reggie was breathing easier. She gave a quick glance between them, then picked up a pair of tongs without comment. By the afternoon lull, people were moving differently. Faster, not with panic, but with pride. And when the lunch wave finally broke, Graham gathered the team in the dining area. It wasn't an official meeting, just a huddle near the drink machines and napkin dispensers. "I want to tell you what's next," he began. "And then I want to answer your questions, all of them. No filters." They circled loosely around him, some leaning against booths, others sipping from paper cups. "First," he said, "we're implementing a new regional hiring plan starting with this store. 2 new positions are already posted. More will follow if needed." He waited. No one objected. "Second," he continued, "all employees will receive clear, printed schedules at least 1 week in advance. No more last-minute changes. And if you're asked to cover extra shifts, it'll be optional and compensated." Janine crossed her arms. "What about shift leads? Do they get any say in who gets trained up? They'll have input, starting with you." She raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. "Sasha," Graham said, turning to her, "a regional HR rep will help you file for maternity leave next week. We're also rolling out a company-wide paid leave policy. You'll be the first to receive it." She looked like she might say something, then just nodded and looked down. "Reggie," Graham added, "I've put in a request for you to attend supervisor training. It's optional, but I think you do well there." Reggie gave a slow, thoughtful nod. "Now," Graham said, "your turn. What do you want to know?" Terrell spoke first. "What happens if the next manager's like the last one?" "We're changing how managers are vetted. You'll all be part of that process. I'll sit in on the final interview myself." Lewis raised a tentative hand. "Can we get more security in the back alley?" "I've already hired a local patrol to check in twice a night, and we're installing a camera by the back door." Janine's voice slid in next. "What about food waste? You gonna let us toss what's bad without having to beg for the okay? From now on, if it's not up to standard, you throw it. No questions. You'll report it weekly and we'll adjust inventory accordingly." No one clapped, no one cheered, but they stood there a little longer than necessary. No one left the circle. Later that afternoon, HR called Graham back to the office. "We've reviewed the time logs," the rep said. "There's a consistent pattern of off-the-clock labor. Some of it goes back months. We're drafting back payouts now." "Good," Graham said. "Get it processed by Monday." "And we've also received multiple statements regarding verbal abuse and discrimination from the former manager." Graham looked up. "Based on what?" The rep flipped a page. 2 employees stated they were consistently scheduled outside of their availability after refusing to work extra shifts. One claims they were denied breaks, while others were allowed them. And there's a pattern of belittling comments directed at younger staff, especially those who don't speak English fluently. Graham's jaw tensed. Document everything. I want a full report. When he returned to the floor, he found Sasha near the front, talking softly with an elderly couple. She helped them to their table, then walked back toward the host's stand. Her steps were slower now, but steadier. Janine caught his eye from across the kitchen. You're really not staying past tonight? I'll be back. You better be. He gave a small nod and turned toward the door. Outside, the late sun hit the pavement in long, golden streaks. Graham stood by his rental car for a moment, looking back at the building. It was still the same Buffett. Same brown brick, same faded awnings. But inside, something had changed. Not everything was fixed. Sasha would still need support through her leave. Louis still had to finish the school year while working evenings. Terrell hadn't said much all day, but the weariness in his eyes hadn't lifted yet. But the worst part, the silence, the fear, the indifference that had been broken. Graham got into the car and pulled away, already drafting his next memo in his head. From now on, every regional manager would spend 1 weekend a quarter working the floor. No exceptions, no suits, no laptops, just hands, eyes, and ears. Because no report could ever tell you what a mop, a tray, or a tired voice really meant. And no leader deserved the title if they couldn't bend down and lift what someone else had been forced to carry alone.